Good afternoon and welcome to this nice quick webinar update on what A2EP is up to with renewable heating. We've got a lot going on and we thought it would be a great opportunity to share with everyone what we're up to and give people the opportunity to work with us. We're all about collaboration here. My name is Jarrod Leak and I'm the CEO of A2EP. And I'd like to commence this webinar with a acknowledgement of country. Here, all of us here at A2EP would like to acknowledge the traditional custodians of the country throughout Australia and their connections to land, sea and community. And we pay our respects to their elders. And very quickly, for those that are new to A2EP, we're a industry association focused on energy productivity. And these are our wonderful members here who share our mission to improve energy productivity in Australia and to achieve fast and smart decarbonisation using energy productivity. This wonderful wide set of members that we have gives us an excellent pool and database and network to make sure that we have the best of insights for our own members and for government and our partners that we work with. And we certainly welcome all new members to join us. For our webinar today, we will do a recording and we'll send out the slides, even though there's not a lot of content in the slides today, as we're hoping for much more in the way of discussion. We'll certainly be taking questions during the presentations and we'll field them after each presentation. But yeah, you feel free to put that in the Q&A, and if not, we'll give you the option to raise your hand and come off mute, and we'll put the camera on for you and join in and ask the question, because we're really hoping for this to be interactive today. We're at the early phases of a lot of work. In fact, I think it's pretty much the most amount of work that A2EP has taken on in the last several years. And we really want to get feedback on what we're doing and understand who wants to be involved and what have you, and make sure that we're taking as many people on this journey as possible. So yeah, please pop in your questions or raise your hand and we'll get you off mute and able to ask that question. Joining me here today, we have Simon Ray, the A2E project manager, Michaela Ling, sorry, Michaela, our program manager, and our latest project manager, Brendan Voss. Each of them is going to be taking you through the projects that they're running and sharing with you what they're up to. As it stands, I'm going to kick off with a few updates of some work that we have completed recently. We did a collaboration with the Australian Hydrogen Council to prepare a report to look at how hydrogen is being perceived and potential within process industries. And so with that, we reviewed a lot of suppliers for equipment and the industries likely to use hydrogen to understand what's going on in that market. And for that, the study, we did not look at things like ammonia, where hydrogen is very likely to be used as a feedstock, and we did not look at hydrogen for steel processes because there's plenty of work going on there already. But what we did have a close look at is all these other industries, alumina, cement, bricks and glass, and all these other very much high temperature industries that need to use things like hydrogen or biogas or electrification. And so we did some reviews there to understand what's going on. One of the first things here that came clear was that the costs and things for using and burning of hydrogen, certainly there is higher costs with the equipment. In some cases, for some instrumentation, it is literally needs to be gold plated to stop that hydrogen leaking into or escaping from the pipework. And so there's certainly much higher costs coming when you need to look at using burning hydrogen. And so a little summary there of just a few of the different extra costs for in a like-for-like cases is summarised there. That's just one of the many tables and things and insights that you'll find in that report. And you can download that report from our publications area in our website. In terms of an overall, give you an overarching sort of theme that continued to come through is that most of industry is preferring electrification and or biomass or biogas. and hydrogen is not coming into much strategic planning, largely due to the uncertainty of supply and cost. On the supply side, to say, how is that going to be stored and produced all year round? And on the cost side, to say, well, right now, that whilst the long-term guide is maybe $2 per kilo, what is that in the short term, and how much is that going to fluctuate, and what have you, and a lot of uncertainty over that cost. So that was the generic picture that we got back in terms of feedback there. This is an extract from the report breaking down the various industries that we investigated. And if you look at the sort of middle column for hydrogen where it's coloured, you'll see there was not a lot of green lights there for hydrogen. Certainly the alumina industry is reviewing that in Queensland to look at using that hydrogen for their calcining processes. And in some cases, bricks and ceramics have said, yeah, look, we're investigating that, and we think it's one of the possible routes that we're going to take to decarbonise our process heating. Not a lot of others are giving that really the due consideration and the R&D that it probably needs right now. So you see most of the green is for bioenergy and electrification for where people are looking at. And we're still quite a few orange spots there where R&D is needed, and we definitely saw that through a lot of different areas, like in cement, themselves wondering how they're going to handle this big, long, clear flame that doesn't have the same sort of thermal properties as a natural gas flame. So yeah, welcome you to download that report. And if there's any questions or comments on that, happy to field those now. Feel free to raise your hand, and if you've got some more questions on that, please do. If not, download the report and you've got questions, you can always ping us later with those as well. So since we've done a lot now in the last 12, 18 months on process heat across electrification and bioenergy and hydrogen, it's led us to a little bit of a model here on where we see things going, and I think most people online will be energy types and therefore love a Sankey, and so this is a quick Sankey that we've drawn up here, utilising data on the left-hand side from the ITP report and from 2019. And then saying, right, what is some likely trajectories and future heating mixes there? And we see, whilst a percentage is achievable with efficiency, most of the work and the heavy lifting, we think, for decarbonising heat over the next 10 to 20 years is certainly in electrification. Heat pumps and MVRs making up a reasonable chunk, and so that's why we did the MVR webinar just recently. But also electrode boilers and things also taking up a large chunk of the potential there for heating. Bioenergy, with current trajectories, we don't see it moving around that much. We've got bagasse being the largest part there, but biogas and biomethane doesn't have best regulation support, not the greatest trajectory for a big uptake at the moment. The race report that we were involved with identified potential for 350 petajoules of new biomethane biogas coming into the market, but yet the current regulatory environment, we're saying 50 or so petajoules being used for process heat at the moment. Hydrogen still a big chunk there, even though our report didn't point towards a lot, but the likes of ammonia and chemicals are certainly likely to be taking up a fair chunk of hydrogen there, and certainly even more if we start exporting green iron in the country. And finally, down the bottom, I've got the fossil fuels for oil and gas processing. Hopefully that fades away for climate reasons, obviously by 2040, even though that's not really locked in at the moment. I'll just pause for the moment and see if there's any comments or questions. I've got one question coming in there. Is there an advantage of an electric boiler over heat pumps? I would say yes, as soon as heat pumps are pretty much limited to 90 degrees at the moment. Special cases like a mechanical vapor recompression taking up to 150 and a little bit higher in other special cases. But electric boiler producing steam, in terms of a drop-in, it's a bit hard to beat in terms of just dropping into an existing steam reticulated system there, Brian. But in terms of cost, you're heavily reliant on electricity price, and unless you've got things nicely firmed and a good electricity price, Electric boiler is not looking the greatest at the moment, and not until the grid is largely decarbonised, the electricity grid, does it actually reduce your emissions. Right now, the Australian grid, I believe it's sitting around about 0.8 tonnes per megawatt hour. It needs to get down to about 0.2, which it should do by the end of the decade. But it's not there now. You'd go to electric boiler right now, that's not a decarbonising activity unless you're in Tasmania or maybe South Australia. If there's any other questions, again, just raise your hand. We'll bring you off. We can bring you off the mute there. If not, just type them in, and happy to answer them as we go. Otherwise, let me move on to the second topic for myself before I hand over to the team. We conducted the Australian Heat Pump Roundtable at the end of July, and it was really well subscribed, and we invited 30 people and ended up with about 40, so that was nice to have that there. And it was an excellent mix of various governments and government organisations. We had ARENA there, federal, state governments, and some fantastic sponsorship from Michaela Race for 2030 and AGL to make it happen. But a really good picture of what's going on with heat pumps at the moment. We gave everybody the update of what we see is happening in terms of research, and there was a really good discussion around some key issues there. I thought I'd share with you just a little bit of what came out of that report, that meeting, the roundtable rather. We polled the audience there of some of the key issues, what they thought was the key issues affecting everybody at the moment, and what would have the biggest impact. And this was the main ones here, as voted by the participants there. So cross-cutting issues, that being standards, regulations, and general awareness, and things like nomenclature, the way we're talking about heat pumps, came up as a really popular one, and we think we're going to do some more work in that area. Followed by optimization of heat pumps, and that's really comes down to understanding how to best install them. And we've certainly seen that in our own experience, that can make a really big difference. If you integrate the heat pump with waste heat sources, it makes a massive difference on the economics there. Next line area for support for interest was support for techno-economic studies, and that coming from general feedback saying that this is holding back a lot of further progress here, because the cost of a study, maybe 30 grand for a small site, well over a few $100,000 for a large site. This is having trouble getting allocating of funds from most businesses, so that was seen as quite a barrier and a bottleneck to progress there. And you can see there's a few others there as well. I won't go into all the details, but certainly our next activity now is to bring together a smaller group from that. And if you'd like to be involved, this is the first call to action for you all today. If you'd like to be involved, please give me an email on that one. If you'd like to be involved in further rounds of discussion or further roundtables, we're absolutely open to having more people, and certainly the more people we can bring on the journey, the better and faster it's going to be. So yeah, next steps, we're going to convene another meeting, work out how we can have further such roundtables, and develop some working groups, and look at some ways to get some funding to see further work done. I've got a couple of questions here. Going back to the hydrogen one. There looks like a question that was there any results that surprised us in that report? I'd say it was a few surprises. Were we thought with all the hype of hydrogen out there, more people would have investigated it. We saw quite a few companies that were saying, look, we've taken a very quick look, but nothing too serious. So we thought more people would have taken more interest there. I think there's some good insight there when you look at this and say, well, if we're just going to export hydrogen and not consider the domestic market, then are we going to end up with another coal seam gas situation, East Coast gas situation, where The domestic market feels like great. We're exporting cheap hydrogen, but we can't get cheap hydrogen ourselves, and it's going to have a damage for manufacturing. Yeah, we definitely saw that there's a place for hydrogen. Bioenergy, not everyone wants to use bioenergy and biomass. Certainly, there's more social issues around biomass than we probably thought there was going to be. Whether or not people are concerned, is this a certified renewable biomass, that sort of thing, which says that hydrogen's definitely got a place to play, and it's a matter of timing. It's a matter of the right government support to get people on board and things. And so it's just a matter of when this is all going to happen, I guess. Ross, I hope that answered your question there. Another question here. Is there much activity on improving regulations to improve biogas access to the existing distribution system? From what we see, I'd say there is a lot of activity. You've got this green power doing these green gas certificates and things now, so that's a big check. You've got, I think, Victorian government's investigating what to do with digestate and some standards there. That's really good. Coming out of the biomethane project from Malabar in Sydney, you expect to see gas injection standards to be developed because they haven't been in place, so that's really good. We see the New South Wales government taking much more interest in seeing more biogas and things happening. Victorian government, I think, is maybe got a ways to go. If anyone were to join the consultation just recently, that on the renewable gas consultation paper, which is due on the 6th of October, we're planning to do a short submission on that one. The presentation they gave in the briefing was very hydrogen focused, and I saw from a lot of comments people weren't too happy with that. And I think as you see from our hydrogen report, it's like, well, there's more interest in using biogas. There's a lot more green lights there for using biomass and biogas than there is hydrogen. I think that needs to be a bit more balance there with this renewable gas plans. Hopefully that answers enough there for you, Murray. Comment here, why are you basing your decarb reply on average rather than marginal grid intensity? It's a very good question, Paul. I was taking the easy route there because you're absolutely right. If you look at an electrode boiler that was, say, operating just during the day, which is likely to have a very, very high renewables content, then sure, you're not running at a 0.8 emissions intensity factor. But I would suggest that live emissions intensity data is not available right now. I understand that the likes of Race for 2030 and the University of New South Wales is working on this and trying to do something here, but it's my understanding that's really not available. But absolutely valid point there from Paul about if you look at more of a marginal grid intensity and what have you, or an instant grid intensity that is not just a one old 0.8 tonnes. So thank you. And scope 3 emissions for gas. So we're assuming in that one. I'm not quite sure I understand the question there, Paul. Might have to get you off mute in if we have time at the end to ask you on that one. But in terms of emission factors for using gas, I mean, we use the standard for when you're burning at 0.53 or 0.56 with a bit of fugitives in there of tonnes per gigajoule. But in terms of scope 3, yeah, I haven't really looked at that. The only other one maybe you may be referring to is things like NOx emissions from hydrogen when burning hydrogen. That was certainly in our report as an issue. But Paul, maybe we'll take that one afterwards. That's plenty from me. Let me hand over now to Simon Ray. Simon is a project manager for A2EP for several years now and has run a lot of renewable heating and different modelling projects for us and done a lot with heat pumps and the like. We've asked Simon to spearhead this work with the federal government here. Absolutely crucial with understanding where gas and coal is being used for process heating. an absolutely essential foundation for further planning. Simon, could you take us through that project there?
Thanks, Jarrod. Hello, everyone. Yeah, so this project is largely based on the success of the Regional Heat Demand Database project by our colleagues over the ditch, the New Zealand Energy Efficiency and Conservation Authority. And in the Australian context, we're working with the Federal Department of Climate Change, Energy, Environment and Water, or DQ, and they've engaged UTS and A2EP to deliver the first Australian accessible, anonymised and open data set about heat demand. So it really is an exciting project to be part of, and I think something that will spur a lot of work down the line. So very happy to contribute to this exciting research. The database will map and quantify existing process heat demands to help enable process heat decarbonisation through better planning, fuel switching, and ultimately decision making. Over time, the intention is also to release an aggregated, anonymised, publicly available data set to enable further studies and inform decisions around the challenges of decarbonising that process heat across Australia. And really, that's the strength of this project, that it's allows for a lot of research down the line as well. So not only our initial research and statistics, but also that third parties can hopefully come in and access that publicly available data. With the logic being that industrial emission reduction opportunities can be better addressed by having a view of regional heat demand. We know that some process heat emissions can be reduced by redesigning the underlying processes, but decarbonising the remaining heat demand will require switching from fossil fuels to low emission fuels or low emission electricity, potentially with significant energy productivity gains too. So really, that's the summary of the project. And at this early stage, we are very early in the development of this project. We're still reaching out to sites. So please feel free to contact me if you have a site that uses, say, greater than 50,000 gigajoules per annum of gas for process heat, or potentially you're a consultant that works with sites that has that kind of level of consumption. Please let me know if you have any comments or questions. I'll be happy to take any.
Thank you, Simon. And your time frame. This project, you're putting this together. When are we looking at getting something to the federal government and a bit of a report out there to help others understand what's going on? What's our time frame here?
We're hoping by the end of the year, Jarrod. So it is initial steps, just gathering those kind of list of potential participants, so that the companies who have this kind of information, and obviously we respect that information has a high privacy concerns with various companies, obviously at the big end of town in terms of their consumption. So we have spent several months developing privacy and data security protocols and management that we've enacted from the very start. So just also emphasize that, as well as the publicly available database that I mentioned, that the high level data will be highly secured and unpublicized. So hopefully that'll start coming in, and we'll be able to provide that report at the early stages of next year.
Good one. And there's a few different areas and people working on this. I will be attending an arena, they call it an A Lab, on the 9th and 10th of October, talking about industrial electrification. And I think some of the data that we'll be getting here, I'm sure they would love some of that already to start in their planning and understanding of industrial electrification here. But so I expect it to feed into lots of different departments and programs there for sure. So yeah, really important piece of work there, Simon. Just checking the questions there. There's a comment here about the 10% of emissions comes from process heating. Do we know what the emissions are from domestic hot water and domestic heating? Can I suggest that in regards to the impact, the low temp stuff like resi heating and cooling would be an easier hit? Yeah. Any thoughts on that one, Simon? I've seen a few different reports on this. I think our report, and Simon, you're on this one as well, that we did with the Energy Efficiency Council on the heat pump opportunity, that explored those emissions for residential, but I don't have those numbers on top of my head.
Yes, indeed. Yeah, I have got those numbers. Yeah, this is really focusing. I mean, there's a number of programs and policies focused at domestic and residential. Yeah, some in commercial buildings, but we know that we can't move to decarbonisation without these big users. So we're really focusing in this instance, as I say, at that big end of town.
Yeah, and look, I totally agree with the comment there to saying that low temp stuff like resi heating and cooling would be an easier hit. I totally agree with that one comment there, question there from John. Absolutely, that is easier. I think there's reasonable momentum there as well at the moment. And yeah, the study that we did with the Energy Efficiency Council, again, that's on our website. It does go through and it breaks down the impact of heat pumps across residential, commercial, and industrial. And from there, you can see there's a fair bit to do there for sure. Yeah, and but yeah, lots of momentum in the heat pump market for residential already, which is good. Okay. I've got a few side questions here on thermal batteries. I'll answer them separately, Simon. I won't just throw that one at you. But thank you for that, Simon. Much appreciate the review there. And again, if you'd like to be involved, you've know of some large energy using sites, please reach out to Simon and we'll get you involved in that mapping project. And it really should come around to help those heavy gas users and coal users to with programs from government to help you make a transformation. Good one. Thank you, Simon. Okay, moving on now. We thought we'd move over to what we're doing with New South Wales Government. And Michaela, if you could come off mute and take us through that. It's the work we're doing in New South Wales Government is building off previous work we've done with ARENA on feasibility studies, and it's really taking this to the next level to get quality and good results from these studies. Michaela, over to you to take us through what we're doing there.
Thanks, Jarrod. As Jarrod said, I'm Michaela, and I'm project managing the latest project A2EP has with the New South Wales Office of Environment and Climate Change. And that's working to deliver a heat pump screening pilot for commercial and industrial sites. And as Jarrod indicated, this flows on from a previous project that Simon ran earlier, that finished up earlier this year. That was testing the initial screening tools, but also did have a number of feasibility studies that flowed on from that. And it is the feedback and recommendations from this work that sort of led to this current project. So basically, what we're hoping to do at the end of this is have a final screening questionnaire that will cover it'll have two different parts that are more specifically tailored now to commercial and industrial. And that'll flow into updating also into the heat pump estimator tool. Now, there is a bit of overlap with this work that we're doing for OECC. There is a project that Brendan will talk to you about after this with RACE for 2030. And there is a little bit of overlap with a few of the different things. But the main thing that I'm going to be running is the pilot to test these screening questionnaire. And we're going to have 20, at the moment it's 20 sites split across the commercial and industrial. And if anyone out there is interested in either being one of the consultants or has a site that they think would be great to be involved in this, please do reach out to either myself or Jarrod. Next slide, Jarrod. So basically these tools, a few of you I can see online may have already been involved in the previous pilot that we did, and there are other people on board that I have worked with on previous projects, so happy to get any input from you guys. But basically the final tool will allow people to go in and with information on a site such as their energy profile and their current gas use, you'll be able to put some information in and see if heat pumps is something that you should be looking at investing in or approaching to that feasibility study stage. And this tool also has aspects of it that allow us to assess the competency of consultants doing the work as well as the sites, just because obviously it's very easy to have people deliver a feasibility report but maybe not have all the in-house capability to do so, and this is hopefully going to avoid that a little bit moving forward. And then other than delivering these tools, so it's basically a screening questionnaire and the heat pump estimator tool, there will also be the potential to do some testing on the reduction of hot water temperature in commercial buildings. And then, like, I've just got a slide on that, but basically we're very lucky. Brendan has joined us and has actually done this sort of testing already in his previous work experience. But we're hopefully going to identify a site that will allow us to actually go in there and look at adjusting that hot water temperature and see if we can actually reduce that and still get the required results. So this again has a bit more development that will happen within Brendan's project with the race for 2030. And I guess, yeah, if anyone's got any interest in being involved or has in doing the questionnaires and the testing, or has a site that they would like to put up, please reach out to me.
Thanks, Michaela. And that this HHW, heating hot water loop temperature reduction, I understand this was actually done a few years ago in Victoria. They did it as an energy efficiency type measure. I had a little bit of trouble finding out, getting all the details on that one, but it was run successfully. But now we're essentially going to do something similar, but looking to get people ready for a heat pump installation, because we know it's roughly every degree that you reduce that temperature of that heating hot water temperature, roughly 1 degree gives you 2 to 3% improvement in efficiency. So if we can go from 80 degrees where most operate at, and we can get that down to 60 degrees or lower, then we'll see a much better performance in the heat pumps that come in replace, and it's quite a game changer. And so we'd like to see more and more sites do that, but we want to just test those a few ways of doing that and making sure that it's the right way to recommend it and have our all the ducks in a row. So yeah, hopefully we'll be testing at a couple of sites over the next few weeks. A quick question there is that the screening is only for New South Wales, correct, Peter? That it is only for New South Wales. But yeah, look, we're more than happy to share that methodology. Essentially, it's a like a tool to screen out if this is really going to be a good site for a heat pump. You know, are they heat pump ready? You're almost answering that question. And so, yeah, Peter, absolutely happy to share that tool with you, and it might help with other work as well. And given how closely New South Wales and Victoria work together, the Victorian government may soon pick up this sort of methodology and do something similar.
And I think it's the intent of OECC that this may eventually end up as a tool available online once we've tested that it does work in every aspect that we're hoping it does.
Yeah, absolutely. And certainly that hoping that will feed into another big run of work, which we have Brendan doing. And but thanks for that, Michaela. And again, if anyone wants to get involved, please reach out to Michaela. We've got to show you all contact details. Have I got the contact details there for you? There it is, michaela.ling@a2ep.org.au. Please reach out, and as always, the more people we have on board, the faster we can move. Very good. Thank you, Michaela. Brendan, you've got a big piece of work on, and that's going to really complement what Michaela's doing. Would you like to take us through that piece of work?
Sure. Thanks, Jarrod. Hi, everyone. Jarrod mentioned this is quite a large project, so I have tried to be quite concise with the slide, so we just don't get too bored listening to my voice. So feel free to put questions in the chat or ask them as we go along if you get bored of listening to me partway through. This project is primarily focused on decarbonisation of heating, and I'm I'm very pleased myself to have joined A2EP and be working with Race, UTS and RMIT, and all the members and industry contributors that I've spoken to so far to deliver what is quite a large piece of heat pump research, actually. So there's 6 key project deliverables, which, as I mentioned, I've sort of put together as a project on a page for us to go through each step. So let's go to step 1. Step 1 is to deliver some case studies. So we have some key aims here. The first one is to include, which is, I think, sort of abnormal sometimes for case studies, is to include non-technical challenges, which may have been economic, financial, key drivers. Was it decarbonisation? Was it energy savings? Was it the end of life of the equipment? What were the key drivers for that project? How did that decision get made? And that culminates into some video interviews with non-technical stakeholders, which will also help hopefully drive the adoption of heat pumps. And obviously, we're also going to cover some technical challenges and what hopefully clearly define on the outside what success looks like for a heat pump installation. So this one won't look much more like than a normal case study that you'll be used to, but hopefully has some very good content that can be used as a driver.
And Brendan, you'll be looking at lifting a few examples from New Zealand in that one. We heard Simon mention this Giddy fund run by ICA over there. We're looking at a couple of case studies from over there. They seem to be a couple of years ahead of us at the moment when it comes to renewable heating.
Yeah, so hopefully 2 or 3 projects will come from New Zealand and we can apply some of the lessons that they've learned there. Those projects look very, very interesting. So I'm sure we'll find some very interesting stuff we can transfer to Australia. From there, they do look a little bit ahead of us.
I can catch up. Okay, product development.
Here is product development. So often I come from a product background. I've worked for OEMs for my whole career. Every single job that I've had has been with an OEM. So often the new products that OEMs may have, the market is unaware of for a variety of reasons. Either that's marketing, or it's just they're not out there building the right relationships, or whatever that may be. So the key aim here is for A2EP to identify what's available now, what will be available soon, specifically within the next 3 years, I think, as a guideline, because that's that's about as far out as some of those R&D roadmaps might get with any real certainty. And the idea of this is it will help inform future decisions around heat pump adoption. It's also fairly clear that in this space that legislation around product registrations, for example, is not as stringent as it is for chillers, as an example. And this is contributing to making white certificate funding being or feeling less accessible. So a key output from this is to identify how we can increase that funding uptake and quantify positive impacts beyond energy savings, just outside of what's available in technology. Hopefully we can get a bit more funding out there to help this transition as well with this piece of work. So
yeah, let's hope that's we can identify how this moves forward with this registration of products, because we see these cases where people are installing just multiple little residential type heat pumps, which are probably not, well, certainly looks ridiculous when you start getting 5, 6, 7 in a row. It may well work, but often not really fit for purpose for a commercial and industrial setting, but understandably heavily discounted because they're deemed under the residential method. But let's hope that this helps see the registration of larger models there, Brendan.
Yeah, and hopefully some of this can also, like I said, look beyond the original energy savings kind of thing as well, and make those schemes feel a little more accessible as well for funding, which will be very cool if we can accomplish that.
Good.
Onto a nice tricky topic, refrigerants. So refrigerants is a bit of a mystery. So for those that have never met me, I am a refrigeration mechanic by trade, so have been in and around refrigerants since I was 17, late 17, I was just under 18 years old. Why specific refrigerants are often chosen is often primarily an opinion, I think, in this industry. And often, and most of the time, I would say that opinion is based on years of experience. And it's really up to who you find and who your relationship is of how good the refrigerant choice may be for a given project and how applicable it is. So it's not always the case, though, that people get good advice. So choosing the wrong refrigerant can make or break the success of a project, particularly in heating. If you choose the wrong refrigerant, your operating characteristics don't match the load profile, or the application you could have a very real issue. So A2EP are aiming to clearly identify the pros and cons of a given refrigerant, and identify a basic application guide that can be used by the industry in real world project scenarios. And hopefully the output of this one is we can educate more people on the refrigerant that they're choosing and why they're choosing it, and how that's going to impact their project. So this one is a bit of a scan of the market for what's out there, and also a bit of an application focused guide where we can provide some advice to the industry and end users of heat pumps. So
yeah, it seems to be a really dynamic space here, Brendan. A lot is up in the air. We see what Europe heading more towards. Seems to be propane heat pumps. Maybe not so much Japan. They seem to be strong on the R32 style heat pumps, but generally not a clear consensus that there's an easy change away from these high GWP refrigerants at the moment. So yeah, really important piece of work there, and I don't know how you're going to keep up with the fast moving pace there, Brendan. By the time you press publish on that one, you might be out of date there. What do you think?
Probably. I think I've done I did a refrigerant report in my last job, and I think the week after I sent it, a new application came out of a product from an OEM, which we didn't have. So hopefully the OEM consultation helps make sure that's not out of date for as quickly as what that one was. So, yeah.
And have you got your list of OEMs all sorted, all organised? We've got a call to action here for other OEMs to contact you for a bit of work there.
Yeah, so a lot of the existing OEMs that we've gone to, or A2EP has gone to for previous studies, I've reached out there on contributing to the project. Any other OEMs that feel like they can add value, we'd love to have you as part of the project. I think the more the merrier in this one. I'd rather do more interviews and have less time and more concise questions than do less interviews with longer periods of questions. So we'll cram as many in as we can in the time frame that we have, noting that those interviews will probably be some time through October and November, maybe. And we'll probably take half an hour of your time, 40 minutes of your time, maybe, to do.
Good one. Thanks, Brendan.
Okay, another really cool topic, and one of my favorites is data. So I've been in the HVAC industry now nearly 20 years, and I often hear people say, we have heaps of data. And when you dig deeper, you often find actually that data may not be in the form that it should be, or it may not be the right data that we can use to actually drive a decision-making process. So the aim here is to clearly categorize methodologies for capturing data, using it in an analysis, basically, and aligning that output to what's required to build a model of a heating system that would actually qualify for that funding input from those white certificate programs. So there's a key link there to that, and further aligning what people are collecting in data and how they're using it to develop an efficient and robust heat pump design with an appropriate technology and size, and using it to size thermal batteries and all those cool other things that can come along with it if you've got the right data. So this one is probably a very interesting topic. A lot of people have data but don't know what to do with it, or a lot of people don't know what to log. So hopefully this one is able to make some very clear guidance.
Excellent. And some cool stuff happening in the IoT space there, Brendan. I think you'll be able to get that into this one as well, to try and reduce that cost of installing instruments and getting that data as well. Yeah,
so anything that you can do to reduce cost of metering is good, basically. So we'll try and cover as much of that application as possible. There are some very good IoT solutions out there that are probably well underrepresented in the market, so we'll see if we can bring some of them out as well.
Yeah, brilliant. Final section.
No, there's still one more after this. This is the fun part of this project. So the heat pump tool. So A2EP has already published this heatpumpestimator.com, which is a very interesting and very cool tool. Basically, to I guess we're seeking to expand the functionality of that tool, and just some ideas of what will go in there. So some more advanced calculations around emissions, white certificates, heating profiles, refrigerants, thermal batteries, and a more advanced economics module, I guess, some of those newly proposed features. So this work requires a large amount of input from both industry and from UTS and RMIT. So I'm really interested to get that work split out amongst those parties and get this one started. what the aim is to develop a calculation tool that represents industry standard. So if someone is a bit unsure of something that they've received, maybe they've got a design from somewhere or someone's made a recommendation, they can quickly come in, type a minimal amount of information and at least get a sense check if they're heading in the right direction. So in amongst all this other guidance about refrigerants, products, applications and data, hopefully this tool is another way for people to qualify what they're actually seeing, which is hard to do because you often just accept the design that you get. So it's going to be very tricky to put this one together. So another call to action here is anyone that thinks they can add value to this tool and get features in there, feel free to reach out. We'd love to hear what you think would help.
Indeed, and the intention being to get people started and give them a bit of a nice little kickstart and easy numbers to get thinking about this, but then obviously leading into more detailed investigations, working with consultants, working with suppliers and what have you. But this will hopefully give people a nice little kickstart there and make it nice and easy for them as well.
Whilst it won't replace the consultant in the typical sense, obviously, like it's not able to replace a consultant or expert advice or a design, it's certainly capable of pointing you in the right direction. And I think putting some of that potentially difficult to understand information into a simple reference form. So, and the final piece is this sort of is a bit of a combination of everything, and probably the biggest crossover with what Michaela had mentioned earlier is determining the most economical and simplest transition pathway from a natural gas boiler to a heat pump for space heating. So this one intends to help FMs, building owners, consider the impacts against a broader set of performance indicators, basically, for adopting a heat pump. So there's a bit of guidance out there, but ultimately it's lacking on methods to identify what that pathway looks like, whether it be lowering a temperature, what temperature do we choose, why do we choose it, what are the key drivers, where are we spending money upgrading systems that we don't need to, what's the trade-off between CapEx and OpEx. So hopefully this particular roadmap will help get those temperatures right and match it to technology well. But crucially, the roadmap will also attempt to focus attention on the potential that efficiency upgrades have to ease those costs. So if you're out there adding a whole bunch more energy consumption to your building, and you can do things like glazing, air tightness, equipment upgrades, valves, whatever it may be, out there are a number of solutions. So if we can get the costs eased at a CapEx and OpEx level by considering those, then this roadmap will aim to at least prompt people to consider that as we go.
And there's been work done in this in the past. GBECA has done some high level things, and is it Better Building Partnership have done some flowcharts, but this will take it to the next level. When instead of sort of hitting a dead end with some space concerns or some electrical concerns, this should really open up a lot of thinking and to say, no, this is not always a dead end. Just it means it's a time to be more creative. And so I think that's an excellent piece of work there for you, for Brendan. And yeah, it really does tie in well with the work that Michaela's doing with the OECC. So they're really complementary. And so glad to be doing both. We do have to acknowledge Race for 2030 and our partners on this one. We've got AMPC helping with funding, DQ helping, and others as well. So yeah, couldn't do it without their support, which is very handy.
Yeah.
Sorry, go, Brendan.
So there's one more slide on the end, which is just a very quick summary, I guess, of all of this. Is some ideal outcomes from this work, or at least what I saw as ideal outcomes anyway. I mean, there's many more than this, but I just tried to get a few in there. So hopefully we see an increased heat pump adoption because we've developed some very practical tools and guidelines. Hopefully we're seeing increased uptake of funding via white certificate programs. This is pretty much from the product development work with OEMs and the data guides. Hopefully we're shaping the ability of people to get funding from those programs. And hopefully we see an increased usage of data to drive decisions, which is from our data guide, an increased awareness of the benefits of heat pumps from the case studies, and a clear picture on application-specific refrigerant options from our refrigerant guide. And lastly, just some sort of benchmarking tool for heat pump calculations, which is going to be put in that heat pump tool in an ideal world. So these are sort of ideal outcomes. I mean, there's many more, but if we could get all of these things happening, we'd be seeing some real driving force in the heat pump adoption which is the ideal outcome. So
excellent. Yeah. Thank you, Brendan. And we continue to see this every other day here at A2EP when end users, manufacturers, councils and things reach out to us with reports and studies. We think, yeah, there's still a lot of missing holes there where people aren't quite sure of where and how to collect the data and how to optimize and how to do these simulations. So this will all help people a lot. So looking forward to the results of this one. Brendan, you'll have this finished by the end of the year then?
Sure, why not? Yeah, if I was doing it all on my own, I still would be going in December for sure. So I think
you'll start seeing results. Start seeing
some results by the end of the year in some of the categories, particularly case studies, and probably the refrigerant. I think is probably the first two cabs off the rank, but also the roadmap might get fairly close as well. I think the heat pump tool will probably be the longest one.
Fair bit to do there, so I appreciate that one. So I think we're looking around about 6 months to get that one up and running. So hopefully somewhere around the end of Q2 next year, we've got some, or maybe a little bit earlier, some beta versions for people to test and play with. So yeah, looking forward to that.
Just to answer while we're here, one of the questions, Satinder, yes, you can access that heat pump calculator. We can send you a link, or it's heatpumpestimator.com.
Yep.
An easy question to answer, so I thought I'll just answer it rather than type it back.
Absolutely. And in terms of the OECC program, Satinder, I'll make sure that Michaela reaches out to you if she hasn't already, to get you involved in that screening, which hopefully leads to some further funding on studies. Done. Very good. Thank you, Brendan and team. If there's any more questions, we've got 5 minutes. I'm just going through the one there. I've got a question on thermal batteries, and Rachel, I'll send you something directly on that one, a bit of a summary that I've prepared for somebody else in the last few weeks of what's happening in that sort of market, the thermal battery market. So I'll send that directly to you, Rachel, the question there. And we've got to answer that question there for Satinder. So all done. Let me just check on the chat. No, nothing further there, apart from, yes, we've had a nice report flag there on domestic hot water units and looking at load flexibility for that for domestic hot water units. So John heard a question on that one earlier. Might be a good report to take a look at there. Some really good things happening there from UTS and ICF. Excellent. Okay, I'll come back to the questions right at the very end, but meanwhile, let me just give you a quick update on some other activities we are doing. We have a webinar on the 19th of October. This is to really support the New South Wales Government grants program, which is opening next month there in October, for supporting of metering planning and metering hardware. And so details of that will be released in the next few weeks, and we'll come forward with a webinar to try and support that, to let you know some ideas of where and how to speak to do the metering planning, some ideas on some hardware, the latest of hardware. I think we've got Endress and Hauser telling us a bit what's going on there, and a little bit on some IoT devices or Industry 4.0 solutions from the company Reliability. Will take us through the latest there. So give you some ideas of how to what to spend that grant funding on. Only New South Wales for that one, though. Another piece of work we're doing is Aquatic Centre capacity building program sponsored by the federal government. We'll be holding a workshop at the end of October with councils. That'll be based in Melbourne, and the feedback from that workshop will then guide the curation of 5 webinars or so on how to say electrify, decarbonise an aquatic centre, and how best to install heat pumps and do energy efficiency. And so you'll see those webinars towards the end of the year. If you want to be involved in those, please do reach out. But that capacity building program will also then run alongside the federal government's $100 million community energy upgrade fund, and hopefully support some good activities there. Next one to mention is the site tours, heat pump and energy productivity site tours on the 12th of October. Places are filling up fast. I think we're just about half full already. So if you want to join that one, please do. There's free tickets for members or discounted members after we finish the free allocation. But otherwise, we're welcoming people on that one as we visit the heat pump installation in the city, a nice big brand new heat pump at an aquatic centre at Cabarita, and then we go to the Tuis Brewery in Lidcombe, and they have got a cavalcade of energy productivity activities there. So you'll see biogas in action, MVR, great set of controls, thermal storage. It's really like everything jam-packed into one site. So that's going to be a great visit there. And so please go to our website to book for that one. And final piece of news there is, I think we've got this one, to map the boilers in Australia. So that one's all done. Simon's taken us through that one. If you do want more from A2EP, please follow us on LinkedIn. Okay, just scanning to see if there's any more questions at all. If anyone wants to come off mute and ask a question, please do so, or raise their hand. I think you can do that. Let me just have a look there. It looks like we've got no one coming through at the moment. So with that, no one typing, no more bets. I think we're all done. Thanks for you joining in this afternoon. Thanks to my fantastic team, Brendan, Michaela, and Simon, for putting that summaries together. Really welcome collaboration here. That's our role, connecting, collaborating here at A2EP. So if you want to be involved, please reach out, either via me or directly. So thanks very much for joining us. Hope you have a lovely afternoon, and we'll see you at our next event. Thank you and goodbye.